Welcome to another edition of Elephant in the Room. And today I am honored once again to be joined by my friend, Professor Makau Mutua, all the way from the State University of New York in Buffalo. Professor Makau Mutua is a distinguished professor in law at the State University of New York, and he also is chairman of the Kenya Human Rights Commission here in Kenya. Karibu, Professor.
Thank you so much, John, for having me today.
The High Court gave a really powerful and well-argued, high quality ruling in terms of just jurisprudence and the way it's argued. And academics around the world have been talking about this ruling, but essentially they shut down the BBI, the Building Bridges Initiative. A lot has been discussed about the legal implications of this. And I wanted to get from you not only a bit of that, but what are the political implications of this?
Let me just say that the judgment which was issued by the High Court on BBI, struck like a thunderbolt, and really has transformed the national conversation about, several theories of political change.
Yeah.
I think traditionally it's been thought that it is, the political branches together with civil society that drive political change. And this has been, of course, true in our case in Kenya, because the judiciary has been prone for a long time. It really was missing in action for decades until the 2010 Constitution. But even in the context of the 2010 Constitution, the only thing that comes close to this judgment in the history of the country is the annulment of the election by the Supreme Court in 2018.
Yeah.
Nothing comes close to it. And if you look just at the weight of legal reasoning and jurisprudence that was evinced by this court that was led by presiding judge Joe Ngugi. But, the point basically is that this is an inflection point for the country in which the judiciary has put its thumb on the scale of political change.
Okay.
The judiciary basically has said, look, we think that the political branches have gotten it wrong. We are going to act as the guardians of the Constitution, and we are going to return this country to the rule of law. Now, that is what they have said. If you get two lawyers together, you're going to get different views about the law.
Yes.
We don't like to say that that something is wrong or something is right. We like to say that there are different viewpoints when we interpret the law. Having said that, I don't want to be paganistic about what has happened here.
Yes.
The judgment is solid. It is forward-looking. It is a judgment that buttresses our democratic institutions. It is a signal to the political branches that the judiciary will not simply sit back and let them run a country the way they might feel like running it, essentially to cater for their own interests.
That said, when one looks at it, you mentioned the famous Maraga judgment of the 1st of October 2017, which annulled the presidential election and forced a repeat election in October that same year. So that was another thunderbolt. And there are those who would argue that the handshake between Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga was partly as a consequence of that, of the contradictions that came out of that, that was, there has to be a political reaction to these kind of judicial events. And you know, if you remember that, you know, we had the second election that was delegitimized by the fact that so many people did not, that so many people boycotted it. We had violence in the streets, and everything only calmed down when, you know, what, you know, BBI started off as quote unquote the handshake between two individuals, and then it grew from there. You know, what, you know, what next? I know it's a difficult question to ask, because there'll definitely be a political reaction to this.
No, there will be. There will be. Let me just say that you know, the BBI, the concept of a handshake was not a bad idea, and I think I've said that before.
Yes. Because
the country was hurtling down a cliff.
Yes.
And the two major protagonists got together and they decided to put a stop to polarization.
Yes.
That's always a good thing.
Yes.
However, it is what happened afterwards.
Yes.
That gave a lot of people pause.
Yes.
The first thing that happened was the formation of BBI.
Yes.
The task force itself, and then its mandate.
Yes.
If you look at the areas enumerated by the two gentlemen,
yes,
there's nothing there to quarrel with. Really.
No.
Yeah, because all, you know, anti-corruption, you know, containing ethnicity, you know, and so on and so forth. All those are great things. Okay. But I think where the problem started was when they decided to create a body, which would then, which then they invested in that body the job of leading a constitutional reform effort.
Yeah.
And I've said this before. I think the mistake was made right there. The two gentlemen did not have very good advisors.
Yes.
Because some of the problems that have been pointed out by the judges could have been avoided. I mean, if this process was launched properly, as we said earlier, we were talking about convening an assembly, you know, to deliberate on these issues.
Yes.
To come into an agreement about how you reform the constitution and where you reform it, to create consensus, to give people ownership.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a huge deficit, you know, of the process, and I don't think anyone can really argue that point.
What next then, Makau, for President Kenyatta? This, you know, he has now got 14 or so months left in his term as president of the Republic of Kenya. This is a project that is now is invested in for 3 years.
I think we should not think about his remaining term in terms of months.
Yes.
We should think of his remaining term in terms of days.
Okay.
You know, not months.
Yes.
You know, because once you begin bumping up against a year into your tenure as president, remaining, you know, year, we begin talking about days, essentially.
Yes.
Because once the campaigns begin, you know, you then become a complete lame duck.
Yes.
Mr. Kenyatta has 10 years, or what, up to this point, close to 9 years.
Yeah.
Deliver on the promises that he made to Kenyans in 2013. When you look at Kenya today, and I don't think that, I don't want to alarm anyone, but I have never really seen the country staring down a cliff this steep since 1964.
Okay.
The only other time that I think there was really an existential threat to the state was in 2007, 2008.
Yes.
During the post-election violence.
Yes.
What we see today
is
a very perilous situation.
Yes.
You have an unsettled political landscape.
Yes.
You do not have a head of state who commands his troops.
Yes.
You have discord within the ruling party.
Yes.
You have aging political leaders vying for office. You have essentially the discrediting or they're coming to an end in the next decade or so, this notion of an ethnic kingpin. That is going to come just through the force of historical gravitational pull.
Yes.
It's not planned, it's by accident.
Yes.
You know, so that the Kikuyu, for example, who have been a very dominant political force in Kenya, will have no kingpin.
Yes.
And so therefore they'll not be able to speak with one voice.
Yes.
The same will be true in Okambani, the same will be true in Nyanza and so on. The only place where there's going to be an ethnic kingpin is the Kalenjin Rift Valley.
Yes.
But ethnic kingpins only make sense when they have others you can dialogue with. You know, you cannot be an ethnic kingpin by yourself. So you need to create alliances and so on and so forth. So for Mr. Ruto, it doesn't give him that much of a leg up.
Yes.
You know, so we are seeing a very parallel situation. You have an intransigent and very belligerent deputy president who is taking no prisoners.
Yes.
He wants the presidency.
Yes.
By hook or by crook.
Yes.
You have Mr. Odinga, who is very wily.
Yes.
And I would advise people to underestimate him at their own peril.
Yes.
You know, but then you have Mr. Kenyatta, whose intentions are not clear.
Yes.
As you said before, I think that if he was given, a blank check,
yes,
he would anoint a Gideon Moi as the president.
Okay.
I think from his family point of view, from the point of view of those around him, I think Mr. Gideon Moi will be the most preferable successor.
Yes.
Because he will protect all of it.
Yes.
I don't believe that they are quite sure of what Mr. Odinga will do.
Yes.
They certainly are not, interested in seeing Mr. Ruto in the presidency.
That's clear.
Perhaps that is the most perilous outcome that they could face. So you could have a broken landscape in 2022.
Okay.
Which would make 2007, 2008 look like a very tame rehearsal.
Wow.
Because suppose, in 2007, 2008, at least, John, what happened there is that Mr. Kibaki was a weakened president because people thought he lost the election.
Yes.
But Mr. Kibaki was a credible head of state.
Yes.
Okay, he was a credible head of state.
Yes.
Much in the same way that I never thought I would ever say this, that Mr. Moi was a credible head of state.
Yeah.
I think, quite frankly, Mr. Kenyatta lacks this credibility. He lacks this ability to command the political stage.
Yes.
And and to govern the country. And so if push comes to shove, and there's a disputed election.
Yes.
And there's political violence because one side may not concede. What will Mr. Kenyatta do? I'm not quite sure that he can do anything. And of course, don't forget that this will happen on the back end of a pandemic that has upended people's livelihoods, that has cast young people, who are the majority of Kenyans, adrift. Now they now feel they have nothing to lose. This is a powder keg.
Yes.
That could be lit.
Yes.
In 2022, with very devastating consequences. So I fear for the country.
Raila Odinga has been the center of gravity of Kenyan politics, and he has creativity, and he has this constituency that he commands. What next for the center of gravity, the gentleman who has been the center of gravity of our politics for so long?
Yeah. So Mr. Odinga, is a figure in Kenya's history like no other.
Yes. If
you think about individuals in politics who really have never held power,
yes,
in the inner sanctum of the state,
yes,
but actually who govern the state, you think of people like Mr. Odinga. He governs without formal political office, and this goes all the way back decades. By the way, it is not just yesterday.
Yes.
When we got into this handshake with Mr. Kenyatta.
Yes.
So that's one thing. The second thing, of course, is that you're right. His instincts are progressive.
Yes.
Okay, those are his sort of proclivities.
Yes.
But the problem about politics is that you cannot keep it pure.
No.
Okay, so he's made many compromises.
Yes.
Some of which those of us who are his friends regret. And perhaps this particular journey, call it journey, on which he is with Mr. Kenyatta, may turn out to be a mistake.
Yeah.
Because my own feeling is that Mr. Kenyatta has not shown Mr. Odinga all the cards.
Yes.
Yeah. And Mr. Kenyatta is playing some cards under the table there.
Yes.
I'll just give you an example. If you're going to sell something like BBI,
yeah.
Forget about all the other flaws of the process.
Yes.
Why would you include in that document 70 constituencies, the majority of which are in the Mount Kenya region, and which, in effect, even in Nairobi, are in those areas of Nairobi which are Kuru dominated?
Yes.
It's very, very strange.
Yes.
So it appears to me that at least on that one point, Mr. Kenyatta cannibalized it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that surprised me. Yeah, it surprised me because if the matrix that he's playing with Mr. Kenyatta simply is that Mr. Kenyatta cannot go to Mr. Ruto.
Okay.
But Mr. Odinga can play Mr. Ruto off Mr. Kenyatta.
Yes.
So I don't know why he has not done that politically.
Yes.
Okay. So that kind of surprises me. Now, I could be mistaken here. Let me just make that very clear. We do not know the depth of the agreement between those two gentlemen.
Correct.
We don't know what the final sort of outcome that they are planning could be. With or without BBI.
Yes.
Because I'm sure politicians do not put all their eggs in one basket, and Mr. Odinga, I'm sure, has not put all his eggs in that basket of the BBI. He would be foolish to do so.
Yes.
So that's part of the question. But the other thing that you raised, the point that you raised, which is very important, is that Mr. Odinga is also in the twilight of his political life.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't think that we can give him more than 10 years of active political life.
Yes.
Perhaps even less. Okay. So he must be thinking that he has one bullet left that he must shoot. Okay. How is he going to shoot that bullet? How is he going to play that particular bullet? His political runway is shrinking.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I do not see a clear path for him.
Okay.
Unless there are some unknown knowns.
Yes.
Things that I don't know that he knows. Of course, there's time for him to reposition himself.
Yes.
To leave the handshake and become a bona fide opposition political leader.
Yeah.
And run on his strength, which he has. Mr. Kenyatta is an albatross around his neck.
Yes.
Unless Mr. Kenyatta delivers the presidency to Mr. Odinga, he'll have been an albatross around Mr. Odinga's neck.
Yes. But what does your crystal ball tell you about what's coming in 2022 as we go into major election?
What the BBI judgment did, John, is to delegitimize the process.
Yes.
To scuttle Mr. Kenyatta's succession plan.
Yes.
That's what it did.
Yep.
And I'm not quite sure that even if the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court comes back and puts BBI back on track, that it's going to have legitimacy. Okay. Because political processes, their success depends upon legitimacy in the eyes of the people.
Yes. And
the confidence that the people have. I think what the High Court did was to lay waste to the entire process. And what do I mean by that? By that I mean it was to say that do not believe Mr. Kenyatta. Okay.
Yes.
The man has violated Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
Yes.
Okay. Do not believe this process. It is not meant for you. It is illegal. Mr. Kenyatta has violated his oath of office. Do not believe him. Do not believe the IABC. It's an illegal institution. Okay. Okay. And then you look at the political landscape, and then you say to yourself, if these institutions are not to be believed, who has the moral authority to recapture our confidence?
Yes.
Okay. Then you had the CJ process, the CJ selection process, which is been shrouded in some, I think, some unhappiness on the part of some, because the CJ, the new CJ, has been attacked by some individuals based upon the ruling that she gave with others on the revote of the 2017 election. So the Supreme Court is tainted, and the judiciary is tainted in that respect. And I don't think there's enough time between now and 2022 for the Supreme Court to regain the confidence of Kenyans. So you take that out of the equation.
Okay.
Okay. So you think, for example, if you have a petition in 2022, and that petition is heard by the Supreme Court, will the people of Kenya accept the judgment of the Supreme Court? Because it's been delegitimized, partly by its processes of selecting its judges, partly by its relationship with the executive. Okay. So you have a vacuum of believable institutions. A vacuum of believable institutions is a petri dish for national chaos.
Yes.
Okay, especially when you are belligerent political leaders.
Yes.
Okay, I do not think that you are going to have a clean sweep of the election in 2022 by one side.
Yes.
I'm assuming that, for example, Mr. Ruto and his gang will go to the one side, and if Mr. Kenyatta can succeed in bringing together the One Kenya Alliance and Mr. Odinga and so on, that will be the other side.
Yes.
Okay. But I'm not quite sure whether those people will come together. Okay. My own sense is that each person, or most of them, will look out for themselves. Mr. Musyoka, I don't think is going to be deputizing Mr. Odinga anymore. Mr. Mudavadi, I don't think for his own sake can really afford to do so. So who is going to, if Mr. Odinga runs, who's going to run with Mr. Odinga? Probably Mr. Moore. Okay. Okay. And the question, so the question there is, you may have 5 or 6 people running, none of them getting the 50+1% that is required, and then you're having a runoff. It's going to be a terrible, terrible situation in 2022.
We have increasingly taken our political problems to the judicial for resolution. Problems which you'd expect politicians to sit in the back rooms and make deals, compromises, agreements, disagreements, deals that can be made and unmade, even in the streets, on the stump, through rallies.
Yes.
Again, COVID plays into that, in that it stopped the normal Kenyan political activity. And so we have found ourselves taking a major chunk of political activity that everyone had been building up to over the last 3 years, landed in the High Court and has been declared illegitimate. Just ask, it's a philosophical question. I mean, in the US, you are quite accustomed to political issues being resolved in the judiciary. That is not so much the case for Kenya. And what does this model portend?
Political democracy works, in a system of compromise, in a system of give and take. Kenyans still have to find a balance between the 3 arms of government.
Yes.
But for that balance to be struck, the executive has to understand the proper limits of its power.
Yes.
Even Kenyans themselves you've seen this. You've heard Kenyans say that Kibaki tried.
Yes.
Because, I keep on saying that Africans are a fatalistic people. Because they have suffered so much. They've been traumatized so much throughout history. Colonialism, the post-colonial state, dictatorships, looting and so on. It's terrible. So we are actually we have become very fatalistic. So that if you do something good, if out of 5 things, 4 things are you do them very badly, yes, and 1 thing you do it very well, we'll forgive you.
That's true.
Okay. So it appears to me, that getting the people behind you in a liberal democratic state, in an emerging liberal democratic state like Africa, there's a lot of goodwill there. That if you just, so for example, this notion of stealing everything.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we know corruption is always there in many societies, right?
Right.
There's no society that is free of corruption.
Yes.
Okay, but in South Korea, what do they used to say? They used to say that in South Korea that we invest the 90%.
Yes.
Yeah. Then we'll overlook the 10% that you've stolen. If you invest the 90 to 95%.
Yes.
Okay. So to me, John, what I see is I see that the people of Kenya are resorting to the judiciary because the other 2 political branches have failed them. I don't think that the BBI judgment would have been necessary if the political branches had done the proper thing and respected the limits of their power. It's only when that does not happen when the judiciary comes into play. If Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Odinga had, run within the lines of the Constitution, not running out of bounds, but within the lines of the Constitution, whipped up the public, created a national debate, constituted legitimate organizations and institutions to debate, the reforms that they wanted. We will not be having this discussion. Yeah. And so we judicialize political problems when, in fact, our political systems fail. You saw Mr. Trump try to judicialize political problems where the political system had not failed. Right? In Kenya, the reverse is true. The political system has failed. So we judicialize those political problems. And then I suspect what's going to happen next is that the political branches will try to find an end run around the BBI judgment to ram it down the throat of the country. And that is what makes states illegitimate.
Yes.
Because I think if BBI passes, by hook or crook, whatever dispensation comes out of that passage will have serious problems.
Professor Makau Mutua, thank you very much for your time. And like I said, we shall be coming back to some of these issues, perhaps sooner rather than later.
Thank you so much.
Asante sana.